All right, Rob Mackey's a reporter for The Intercept. He won a Mirror Award in 2022 for how he covered the right-wing media misleading his viewers about Black Lives Matter. And to that, of course, I would say, of course. But on the other hand, you have to show it. You have to show with evidence how they do that, and that's what Rob does. So Rob, welcome back.
Thanks very much, Shane.
All right, so this time around you wrote about left-wing voices are silenced on Twitter as far-right trolls advise Elon Musk. So first, let's start with the right-wing trolls. I mean, so Elon Musk's a bit of a mystery, as of course everybody knows. He seems smart sometimes, and then other times he seems challenged. And what seems particularly curious, other than him overpaying by tens of billions of dollars for properties right in front of our nose, is who he's taking advice from. Because every once in a while it'll pop up, and I'm like, wait, is he really listening to those guys? So who is he listening to?
Well, I mean, this is a strange thing. We do get to see some of this play out in public because he's actually responding on Twitter to some of the most extreme far right. I think trolls is a fair description. They're people who use the platform to attack the left and to advance all kinds of crazy theories and reporting that just isn't borne out by facts. So we see him, for instance, interacting with Andy Ngo, who's very shoddy reporting on left-wing protest movements and anti-fascism has helped create this whole kind of mythical idea that there are not just a group of, a handful of groups of anti-fascist activists who counter-protest against the right, but that they're kind of a shadow army taking over the country. It's totally bonkers stuff. But one of the people who seems to have fallen for that is Elon Musk, because we saw him taking direct advice from Andy Ngo and reiterating that Andy Ngo could report directly to him what he called Antifa accounts. And then shortly after that, we saw a bunch of left-wing activists banned from the platform for no apparent reason. I mean, some of them were given no reason at all, and others were given reasons that didn't even make any sense, like saying they'd evaded bans. If you're banned on Twitter and you use another account to keep tweeting, they kick you off for that. But the people he banned just weren't doing that, so it doesn't even make any sense. But it does seem like he's directly listening to Andy Ngo and to other just totally far out people who have extreme views that normally would be ignored. But he's making these decisions based on kind of anecdotal evidence and what seems like his agreement with their politics.
Yeah, I want to get back to some of those cast of characters because it's fill a whole Sith planet with them. But on that particular story, the left wingers who have been banned, and this is not theoretical, guys. They've already been banned, and so it has begun. I mean, it's literally a purge because they didn't violate any terms of service. But there was one story there that, Rob, you got to remind me of that I thought was the most interesting. One where one of the parties involved got an email saying, "Okay, you're cleared. No, we checked up on these term of service violations, theoretical ones, and it turns out you didn't do it." And then later in the afternoon, it seems like you see a tweet to Musk saying, "No, get rid of him anyway," and he kind of does. But I've oversimplified. So what happened?
Yeah, that I think you're talking about. There's a kind of old veteran anarchist collective, Crime Think, and they produce flyers and posters and wheat paste that you see on street corners during protests. And Andy Ngo has decided that they're an Antifa organization that he claimed he said they claimed attacks as if they were a terrorist group. It's completely fantasy. But he reported them to Musk. And then they told us that they got emails from Twitter saying, in accordance with German law, like in Germany, before they ban you, if someone complains, they have to tell you about it. So some of these triggered these automatic emails saying, according to German law, we have to let people, complained about these tweets. But we looked into them and none of them violate our terms of service. So you're good to go. And then they were banned anyway. So as they told us, it seemed to be direct intervention. Their system was saying you didn't do anything wrong, but at the same time, they lost access to their account and now are completely suspended. So there does seem to be, there's an existing process that Twitter had in place, trust and safety to deal with these kinds of things. They tried to have uniform standards. And now what we seem to be seeing is those just being overridden by a right-wing billionaire and whoever is around him. There aren't that many people, but people who seem to share that ideology and they're taking complaints directly from people who are willing to lie and just even aren't that bright. They're not that on top of what they're saying. They're easily misled by the news they report on. They get things wrong. They jump to conclusions, and now they have the person who owns Twitter acting on their behalf.
Yeah, well, I'll take issue with that last part because I think that what you described is not the Andy knows and the right wing, rabble rousers, if you will, trolls. What you described is really Elon Musk. He seems to be the fool that doesn't understand anything, and those guys, I think, are not misunderstanding anything. They're just lying. That's what they do on a regular basis, and so it's not like, oh, I got it wrong again. No, they know what they're doing. The idiot in the game seems to be Musk. So which is really interesting. We'll come back to that too. And by the way, guys, if you want to get the exact details, you always can find the links to the articles when we're interviewing reporters in the description box. So check out Rob's piece there. Make sure you read it. It's really interesting. So Rob, something that wasn't in your piece is other characters. It looks like he's listening to Cernovich and Posobiec, I can never pronounce that guy's name. And those guys are total, utter toxic loons. I mean, Pizzagate, not like just lunatics. And so is he actually listening? Does he not realize those folks are lunatics?
Apparently not. I mean, he's definitely responding to suggestions from those kind of quarters. And yeah, you're right. I mean, Jack Posobiec, he was one of the main people with Cernovich pushing the Pizzagate thing right up until somebody walked into, Ping Pong Pizza, Common Pizza with a gun. And then they said, oh no, we're just journalists reporting on, we're investigative journalists. No, they're not. They're operatives. They're political operatives. They have an agenda and they use information. They tell people things to get to the ends that they want.
Yeah, so now back to Musk. So he's banned left-wingers, but it appears he's also platforming Nazis. So this is not a good combination. And guys, we're being literal here. So Rob, tell us about some of the worst characters he's put back on the platform.
Yeah, I mean, there's this straight out Nazi, Brett Stevens, I think his name is, who, not the Times columnist, but another one, who is, was kicked off a decade ago for inciting attacks and for just horrible white supremacy. And now has an account again on Twitter and is able to push this agenda of white supremacy, saying they want a white ethnic nationalist state. And there seems to be no problem there for Musk in having these kinds of voices. But people who, some of the people who've been banned are people who identified Capitol rioters, who caught Proud Boys, who attacked the police and have been arrested since then. But now they're considered extremists, and people who are actual Nazis are on the platform. It also goes to, there are people kind of interacting with Musk and essentially probably tricking him into repeating code words for the Nazis. There was a whole thing about, somebody posted something about the world in 88 million years, and 88 being the eighth letter, HH for Heil Hitler, is a code for right-wingers, Nazis, not right-wingers. Yeah. And Musk just repeated it, as if either he had no idea or he doesn't care. And then they all celebrate that. There's a whole snowball effect here.
Yeah, him getting tricked on words is a little disturbing because he's repeating Nazi propaganda, but a lot less problematic than him getting tricked on content and who to put on there and what substance to offer to the followers of Twitter. So let's talk about that more. So. Did I read right that Daily Stormer and Andrew Anglin are back on Twitter too? I don't know if I'm getting outside of the scope of what you wrote about.
Yeah, no, we didn't write directly about that, but that's right. That's right. They are back on there, and it's incredibly disturbing. And I guess to some extent, as one of the people I interviewed who was kicked off, Chad Loader, who's a security researcher and an anti-fascist activist in LA, and a very sharp open source investigator, said, basically, with social media platforms, the product that you're selling is content moderation. It's creating a space where communities can get together and exchange ideas. And obviously we know Black Lives Matter started as a hashtag, racial justice protests, union protests and organizers, a lot of social movements outing and finding these people who rioted and invaded the Capitol. A lot of these things have happened on Twitter because it's a space where people aren't just constantly assaulted and tricked and criticized every time they say something. And Musk seems to be abandoning that just for making it into what he thinks of as a place for the kind of speech that he likes. But
yeah, and so look, if you don't know, Daily Stormer is a neo-Nazi website. There's nothing subtle about it. They're flat out Nazis, and so that which leads to the next question. I think fairly obviously, is there any rules left on Twitter anymore? And so I asked that in the context of Kanye, when he was saying things that were pro-Hitler and talking about the death of Jews, was put back on Twitter. That was apparently okay. Then he did a swastika and he was taken off of Twitter. But yet, at the same time, approximately, the Daily Stormer is put back on Twitter. So is there any rule other than whatever pops into Elon Musk's frivolous head?
There doesn't appear to be. I mean, officially they say there are these rules, and Musk obviously acted directly to take down Kanye after Kanye posted that swastika mashup with the Star of David. But he said it was because it violated their platform rule against incitement to violence. It's not clear. I mean, it's a disgusting, idiotic thing to do. It's not clear that that was actually a direct incitement to violence. How are these rules being applied? There doesn't seem to be any consistency at all. And we don't even know who's working on things. Apparently, a lot of it, in a way, someone who's now at the trust and safety team told Reuters that a lot of it, the idea for Musk is to have things automated. So you just have, sort of AI decisions made about what's hate speech and what's dangerous, and with predictable results. I think just with predictable results. There are reasons he's reinventing the wheel. There are reasons that content moderation over the last decade had to be worked on so diligently and at great cost to a lot of people. And Musk seems to be just throwing that all out.
And of course, it also depends too. How do you program the AI? If you program the AI to allow Nazis, it'll allow Nazis, right? And so you seem to be getting at the same result either way. Okay, so and finally, if Elon succeeds and makes this, washes out. I say finally, no, I'm gonna ask two more questions. So if he washes away real left-wing journalists and independent media and turns this into a right-wing ecosystem, well, didn't he just take Twitter, which he paid $44 billion, and turn it into Getter, which is worth about $44?
It certainly looks that way. I mean, it doesn't seem, I'm not a business journalist, but it can't be a play to win over advertisers because they're freaked out by it, as any right-thinking person would be. What's the ultimate aim? I don't know. But it's definitely, he's very open about the idea that it's to undermine what he sees as the creation of a woke agenda. He thinks that Twitter has been promoting ideas that are too left-wing, which authentically very diligent left-wing people would take issue with. But the company he saw as a bad influence on the country, and he wants the country to go clearly in a more right-wing direction. I mean, he's even used the platform to tell people to vote for Republicans in the midterms. He's allowed Trump back on. So I don't think it's very difficult to see what he wants. How it's going to work in a business perspective, I don't know. Maybe it's not that hard for him to go bankrupt and just kill the thing. But that seems to be where we're going.
Yeah, so there's two possibilities here. One is that he's got something figured out about the information marketplace, and he's going to use it to, well, the harsh word would be manipulate markets, whether it's crypto markets or real markets. And his real play is to make billions off of that, not off of Twitter itself. So that's a possibility. But even if that were so, he's still overpaid. And I am a businessman, I can tell you that with absolute certainty, okay? But not only that, does he, all right, let me ask it this way. If he's leaning right-wing in terms of the content that he allows, Nazi, etc. I mean, that's not just leaning, obviously he's going fully in that direction. And he starts to ban left-wing people as he has here. My God, if he crosses over to mainstream media, folks, he's toast. That Twitter's gone, right? But I mean, my sense is that mainstream media doesn't really care about independent media. So them, these actual journalists being banned, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the New York Times is like, whatevs, they're not in our club at all. So don't care. We're still gonna be on Twitter and it doesn't even bother us. But you ban a couple of New York Times and CNN folks, then you really have nothing but True Social on your hands. Am I missing anything? Wouldn't it be identical to True Social at that point?
I think it would, except that Trump is on Truth Social and he's not apparently on Twitter at the moment. But yes, absolutely, you're right. You're right, Cenk. And he doesn't, but he sees this. It's all this weird 15-year-old strange ideology about freedom of ideas and democratizing the journalism. But what activists? I said, our article is illustrated with a picture from the 2011 Egypt protests that were very, people use Twitter to organize an actual revolution online. And if people like that see this as a platform for right-wing Nazis, they're not going to use it. They're just not going to use it. People are going to find other ways to organize and to communicate.
Besides which, if he starts banning more and more left-wingers, we won't be allowed to use it. And then, by the way, the right wing will get bored because who are they going to attack then? So right. This is as bad a business model as I've seen. So let's see where this train wreck, it comes into station, if you will. All right, Rob Mackey at The Intercept, following us closely. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.